Put it next to the ear nicely, and then tap it on there. Good. Run away, Sasa. We're running now. Good. Thank you. Next time you learn this. Good morning, one. Good morning, all, and a wonderful morning again to have you here with us live from Galaxy Investor Network in Johannesburg, South Africa. Your host, Maponga J, your program, Sankofa. Today, we're talking about drugs and social ills that are actually infiltrating the continent. We can not only talk about South Africa, but we don't want to talk about the entire African continent, the abuse of alcohol, the abuse of drugs, and how this economy is actually eating into our social fiber. You will all know very well that once a person gets involved in drugs, their career path is messed up. In some cases, families are messed up, and theft comes into place. Crime becomes the next bus stop. And Africa needs to work on this small little, what I call a 6-point plan of resuscitating herself and growing another generation as we are in this 21st century. While we're trying to do this Ubuntu thing, and Africanization, decolonization, and etc. You find that right at the back of our program, we are struggling with the youth of this continent who, out of frustration, political frustration, economic frustration, marital and family collapse, wrong influences, and role models in the community. Some of the young people have found themselves falling out of the mainstream academic institutions, and they end up on the drug streets. And Nyaope is rife here in South Africa, for example. There are drug flats in Cape Town. Zimbabwe cannot be excluded. Botswana cannot be excluded. Nigeria cannot be excluded. Kenya cannot be excluded. It's a scourge that people don't want to talk about. But what makes it complex is that drug abuse is not only an issue for the poor. You also find that rich men's kids end up on drugs. They have everything around them, and life stops having meaning to them. You call anything that you want, you have it. And they want to move their lives to another level to experience other things. So it's not only a problem for the street kids. You also find that rich kids, rich people's kids, actually are also on drugs. Then you find different classes of drugs. Drugs for the poor, drugs for the middle class, and drugs for the high end. And if you have been watching movies for the best of time, American movies, you will not watch 4, 5, 6 movies before you bump on a movie that has to do with Panama, that has to do with Venezuela, that has to do with South America, Latin America, and Venezuela's, and the issue of drugs becomes important. Even some cases, we cannot even now underlook or overlook the wars in Afghanistan. That one of the reasons why America is refusing to leave Afghanistan is because Afghanistan is producing opium also at a high level, whether they're using it for medical use or they're using it for entertainment purposes. That remains to be discussed on another day. But there is a whole multi-billion industry that governments don't want to talk about, and this is the drug industry, which creates an economy of its own on the barrels of guns and the hastes and cash and everything else that is there. That's at a business level. But at a consumption level, then you have hobos, and you have theft and crime and the breakaway of home. So here is the 6-point plan. Number one, we need to sit down as the African continent and assess the damage that has come through the colonial program. What sort of damage? The academic damage that we have and the economic damage that we have. Breeding children that don't know their responsibilities and etc. People who have learned that you can escape to another world, and unfortunately when you come back, the problems that you escaped from, they are still looking at you. We need to sit down as communities, as families, and as a country, and stop doing politics. Start assessing the damage in the society. If you say 60% of South Africa, for example, are youth, question, where are those youth? What are they doing? Where are they playing? What are they tampering with? Of those 60%, how many of them are in constructive academic, career, skills development programs who are making something of themselves? How many of them are in cheap labor? How many of them are on the street? How many of them are in crime? Then as a country, I think when we do our budgets, then we begin to address these issues. Address these issues. Issues such as sport, agriculture, entertainment, dances, drumming, crafts, and etc. are not just sort of distractors, but they're constructive places where the youth can spend their time. The real issue is not what you do with your time, but what you do with your extra time. Because it is in the extra time that, because school can be accounted for, sleeping can be accounted for, church can be accounted for, homes can be accounted for, but there is amount of time where the young person has nothing to do. That's when they call each other, hey, keep on, hey, what's up, what's up? I got some extra 5 hours, 4 hours in my hands. What must we do? Then they sit on the stoops in town, on the street corners, and then they start experimenting with marijuana. They start experimenting with glue. They start experimenting with pawpaw leaves and mango leaves and etc. Just trying to get some high of some sort. And unfortunately, many of these habits that are learned at this age, they tend to grow with the children until they're of a mature age, and then they become social ills. Number one, assess the damage that has been done. Number two, let us design and adopt as Africa and our curriculum a well-resonated local governance system structure. And I'm talking about governance at a high level because it is from that governance level that you are able to write legislative frameworks that govern the communities where our young people are living in. Often, then parents are told, you cannot discipline your children. The government just says that as a statement. But we have not yet seen workshops where parents are now being taught new methods of disciplining their children. So if you say we must not do this, what we've been doing for the longest of time, if a child messes up, you smack their ends, and then the government just sits one morning and says, no more touching of children. Then you grow up with these children who cannot be touched, who cannot be spoken to, and the parents have a curveball in their hands. Now they don't know, and apparently the new method of disciplining children is go to your room. When they go to their rooms, they're on porn. What do? They're not watching pornography. Oh, take away their phone. When they take away their phone, they're sniffing glue on the corner. Has the government come up with a new, proper, well-established psychological process of running workshops around the governments and around the communities, of introducing this new method, whatever you want to call it, this new method of bringing up children? Because one of the most important ministries in any society, it is the ministry of children. The ministry of breeding, growing, educating children becomes the core of building any society. And any government that does not intentionally get involved in the breeding, growing, and education of its own children is just hoping by chance whoever makes it through the system will end up here on top of the ladder. Unfortunately, it's not so. Less than 2 to 3% of our children end up in anything meaningful. The rest of them fall out into unspeakable conditions of life. Huge talents are buried in the graveyard because those young people never received an opportunity to grow themselves, find themselves, and make a contribution into society. Governance is the issue. How do we write legislative frameworks that impact the very factory that produces those children, and that is a family? So we need a framework, an Ubuntu framework. How can we take the principles of the past, put them in the present, so that we can grow children in this generation? Assess the damage, identify a correct governance structure. Number three, while we are there, we need to own our gates. Our gates are means of commercial, means of economic empowerment for the very communities we're living in and governments that we're living in. Without money, without resources, without active participation of the community, then you end up with people coming up with variant methods of making money. And this becomes a problem because people don't have access. Poverty is another cause, even of drug abuse, but I'm not saying it's the only cause. It is one of the causes. Stress, frustration. Even educated people, when they get frustrated, then they go to the bars, they go to the pubs. Hey, give me double shot of whiskey there. Because they're just trying to black out from this environment that is there. And what do you think? Those who cannot afford double jack on rocks, where do they go if they don't end up again in the drug houses? So poverty is a problem. And it needs to be addressed. So we need also to speak about the economics of drug abuse in our own communities, the governance systems in our own drug communities, and also above that, how much damage has been caused on that. Thirdly, we need also to work on the walls, which is the security. These drugs are coming into the country. through the airports, through the ports, through the buses, through the railroad, and some of these have ended up with our children as drug mules who are stuffed with drugs somewhere in Japan, somewhere in South America, somewhere where they must swallow these plastics and etc. and go through borders. And we have seen them putting them on their dreadlocks and feeding them with drugs and stuff. And this now speaks of security, because we know it's a fact that our immigration officers and our custom duty officers, our police and our intelligence offices, they actually know these drug lords. It's nothing hidden. For crying out loud, some of these officials are actually on the payroll of these drug lords. And this includes, I mean, we have seen during the times of Thabo Mbeki, Celebi himself getting caught up in some very complicated environment where drug lords were involved. And how do we answer for that? If the problem is this close, that the Chief Commissioner of Police himself is caught up in the corridors of drug dealers, how then do you think that a country can be safe when the security measures, of which the huge part of drugs are flowing into a country? South Africa does not produce opium. South Africa does not produce some of these drugs, but they are here. The question is, how do they come into our borders? How do they come into our communities if they don't fly? So here we are talking about SAA, talking about Kenya Airways, talking about United Emirates and all these beautiful airlines that are landing in the OR Tambo every time. Are we sure that what they are bringing into the country is what will build the country? We also want to address the issue of security as a country. How do we protect our borders? How do we protect our gates so that we can breed and start having communities that are safe? Point number 4, I think I'm on number 5 now. It's 5. I said assess the damage. And after assessing the damage, design good governance structures. After that, good economic structures and security structures. After that, we need to build temples, sanctuaries, academic, social, spiritual learning institution. One thing that we found on these drug young people, they are looking for themselves. They can't find themselves. They can't find themselves in the careers. They can't find themselves in the churches. They can't find themselves So the question of morality and ethics is actually a spiritual question. And that has to do with your identity. Who are you? So when the kids are beginning to experiment with this, they're trying to find themselves. And many times when they're trying to look for themselves, they end up losing themselves. Do we have social structures in our communities where we can begin to intentionally again teach the children? I will call these temples, I'll call these sanctuaries. And I'm saying so because South Africa right now is talking about 60, 70, 80% Christian community in South Africa. So it means that 60 to 70, 80% of our drug pushers are coming from Christian homes. So in the fact, and if 60% of the country is Christian, and 60%, therefore 60% of the drug pushers are Christians and are coming from Christian homes. So can we say Christianity is working? Maybe we needed to find out again what sort of content is being pushed into this religious institution. But I'm advocating for spiritual centers which can actually begin to educate our young people and prepare them for the future that we're anticipating. So after we've built up our temples, then we can begin to build up our families, which are individual home units. Now there we are teaching self-preservation, marital preservation, husband preservation, wife preservation. And this is the core of the community. We start off with the individual in a family, unit number 1. And then from the family, we move over to the spiritual information that they are running their home with, the software of running this home. From the sanctuary or from the temple, from the spiritual vortex, we therefore move further on to seeing how best we can begin to have our securities, have our economics, have our governance, ultimately be able to recreate for ourselves a community that is viable and good. With me in studio today, to be beautiful and wonderful, I'm sitting with Kurt van Heerden, all the way from Johannesburg, South Africa, right down on the south side, now living in Florida, who has a passion, great passion, in the line of drug and addictions and drugs and etc. And we'll be talking more to him and hearing what he's got to say about this issue of drug abuse in our communities. Welcome to the show, Kurt van Heerden. Who are you, sir?
I'm Kurt van Heerden. I am the author of Addicted to the Addict and also the CEO and founder of Institution of Grace. It's a drug and rehabilitation center that helps every single person struggling with drug addiction.
Wow. Wow. What drives you to this corner of dealing with drugs?
I grew up in a community where seeing people getting shot, stabbed, and beaten, these were common occurrences for me. Growing up in a community where I saw the majority of young people losing their lives to addiction and to substance abuse. It is growing up in that environment and in that community where I can reference my passion from. It is having the passion not to see a next generation continue down the pathway of drugs.
How close did you come close to this drug use? And I'm talking about, sometimes impact happens there and there and there. You see the guy on the corner there, the guy on the corner. But when a cousin, a brother, a sister, an uncle, and a father is involved, I'm trying to find out proximity. How close did you come to the clutches of drugs themselves?
I lived with it. It was around me. It was in every corner. It was in every conversation. It was everything that our friends would speak about. So it was something that was always in close proximity with me. But because I knew where I wanted to go to, because I knew where I wanted to end up in life, it was always something that I could say no to. And I think that's the antidote for saying no. The antidote for saying no is often the ability to have a vision within you by which you have conceived a reality within yourself before it's even born.
And you drive towards that reality.
And you drive towards that reality and you begin to say no to everything that could potentially derail you from that reality that you want to see become something of meaningful existence within your life.
So influence is all over.
It's
from
it's all
school
over. From
to
school,
entertainment to everything around you.
everywhere you turn.
There's drug.
You have an option to be influenced or to be an influencer. You choose.
You choose which direction to go.
You choose.
All right. And so you live in this community that is infested with drugs abuse. People are being shot and etc. Any close friend and etc. who at one time you got yourself caught up in that environment?
I would say not so much a close friend, but my brother.
Your brother?
My brother's currently sitting in prison.
For?
Murder.
Murder.
Whether he was the one who shot, whether he was the accomplice, we do not know. But what we do know, it's drug related.
And he was on the scene.
He was on the scene. On that day, I was in the rehabilitation center, drug rehabilitation center. I was doing an empowerment session because we believe in our organization that the same mind that created the problem cannot be the same mind that solves the problem. And unless you change the mind of an addict, you cannot change his life.
So you were busy actually doing a workshop?
We were busy doing a workshop. Then I received a call from my mother saying, your brother just shot someone. Dropped the phone, and in Afrikaans I said to my mother, ek is nou daar.
Meaning?
I'll be there now.
Okay.
Drove down. When I got to the crime scene, there I was, standing over the body, cops all around that scene, and I saw the boy dead, shot through the head. I heard the cops say at that moment, Wade is my brother's name. He's armed and dangerous, shoot to kill. In that moment, I got into my car, I drove off. I went to go and look for him in the community that I grew up in, where I would witness these common occurrences, people getting shot, stabbed, and beaten. I drove around the block continuously because I knew
he's around here.
He should be around here, but if the cops find him before me, they'll kill him. So I saw him, ran across the squatter camps. There he was, high on crystal meth, with the hoodie across his head. I called out to him and I hooted, and luckily he saw me. I picked him up. I drove him out of the community. I sat him down and I said to him, you've got two options. One,
hand yourself over.
Two, or continue running. And the third one is impossible. What's the third one?
Shoot you. Die. Change.
He's a 26, and in the 26 gang,
okay,
he cannot disclose certain information.
We've already moved further ahead. He was already in a gang also.
He's in a gang.
He's in a gang.
He's in a gang. Whether those were things he had to do to get deeper into the gang, I'm not aware, because there's certain information when you're in that gang that you cannot disclose. But in that moment, I heard the cry of a brother that grew up with me, that had deeper problems than his addiction that he was facing. In that moment, I could hear a boy that needed a family that was not as dysfunctional as ours. In that moment, I could hear deeper than what everybody was seeing. And in that moment, it reassured me that I began to build a deeper desire to be addicted to the addict.
Wow. What a testimony. Addicted to the addict.
Yes, sir.
Take us through that.
Many people are addicted to some form of addiction, whether it be drug addiction, whether it be social media addiction, whether it be approval addiction. Everyone has...
Even love addiction.
Even love addiction. Yeah. Everyone has some form
Even church addiction.
Even religious addiction.
Yes, people get, you don't even remember to do anything for yourself. All you think about is people go to church on Sunday.
Yeah.
They are there on Monday.
Yeah.
They are there on Tuesday. They are there on Wednesday. On Thursday, choir. Friday is what? And you wonder, when do you work? When do you look after yourself? When this has become an obsession.
And I got a personal problem with that, because people have become addicted to the system of the church. And they've lost themselves and their personal identity. So when we speak about addiction, we're speaking about a broader scale.
Okay.
So when I speak,
everyone is addicted
to something.
Unless you be aware of it and you start working across it.
And that's the problem. Most people aren't aware of it, because what we started doing when it comes to addiction, we started segregating the word. And we started saying that addiction, the word addiction only applies to you when you are on some form of substance that shows a physical representation of your addiction. But if it's subtle and if it's deceptive, you can hide it away. So when we speak about being addicted to the addict, it is being addicted to the potential of the person.
Okay.
Being addicted to the purpose that that addict needs to develop, birth, unearth, and find in the earth.
Your passion is with the person.
My passion
with
is
the person.
Definitely.
And how do you get the best out of this person?
Most definitely.
And move them away from their addiction into what they need to be.
Definitely.
So,
you know, I always say that the greatest tragedy is not to see our loved ones relapsing. The greatest tragedy is not to see them go into a continuous cycle of addiction. The greatest tragedy is for us as loved ones, family and friends, to be content with them finding sobriety without purpose. How do I now become a positive contributor to the economics of this world, to the social development of this world, to the community that once destroyed me and once had me bound to addiction, in which I robbed people, I killed people, I broke into people's homes, broke into people's cars. How do I become someone that identifies his purpose and can now effectively go back into that community and bring positive change?
So basically what I'm hearing you saying here is that addiction, is whether it is substance or whether it is material addiction. I mean, we've had kleptomaniacs, people who are just stealing.
Yes.
Because you cannot afford. So basically you want good things.
Yes.
But you don't have the means to get the things that you want.
That's correct.
And what do? You end up in crime to fulfill an addiction of some sort.
Definitely.
You end up actually, as you're saying, killing, stealing and all those things. But the issue is not stealing. The issue is to fill in.
There's a void.
There's a void that you are trying to get all these things.
Yes.
Take us through that. Take us through that process.
That void can be referenced to not knowing who you are. And it's reference to not knowing what you need to do with the discovery of who you are. In the absence of us not knowing the purpose of a thing, abuse is inevitable. So
external and internal. You can abuse others. You might not even abusing yourself.
Exactly that. So you become the victim when you don't know who you are towards yourself. So in the absence of not knowing who you are, I try and find my identity even in crime.
Hence you're talking about all these clubs and gangs.
Yes.
Where people now have to find a new definition of who they are and their social structure. Here there are serious structures there.
That's where
commanders and what, and people try and find their seats in this sub-social structure which gives them meaning, purpose, and camaraderie,
And to them, that's who they are. To them, that's what they were born to do. To them, that's the explanation of their identity. So you have to take that person through a whole reinvention of you've believed a lie.
Someone once wrote a statement that says the greatest enemy to us, to us is not those that are outside, but it is ourselves. That instead of looking for enemies that are from without, one of the biggest enemy to you can actually be you.
Definitely.
With the quality of the decisions that you make, the quality of friends that you gather around yourself, the quality of influences that you give access into yourself, and the impact of those things. So sometimes you don't even need anyone to kill you. You're capable of killing yourself.
Sure.
You know, that kind of thing.
You know, it is said that the greatest enemy at times is my inner me.
Inner me. One more time. Say that again. Hashtag this one, you guys. One more time.
The greatest enemy at some times in our lives is the inner me. You know, a void of identity is the only prison that exposes that the locks are often on the inside.
You don't have to worry about the jail. You are locked from inside.
You're locked from
inside. And
inside.
often, it must be said that the keys to come out of that prison cannot be outside.
It's inside.
The keys are inside. So, and hence you're talking about personal identity, finding yourself, and stepping out of your own prison and unlocking your own potential and begin to have that purpose and move towards the direction of life that you need.
Most definitely. But the problem that we're encountering in our generation is that what I've discovered and what we deal with in our program is, as much as you have the addicted, you have the affected.
Yeah. Oh, wow. Wow. The infected.
You have
the
the
affected.
You have the mother, you have the father, you have the family who has now and who is being affected by the addict's addiction. But what
we all become drug abusers now. In that environment, we all become addicted to your habits.
So the problem is here now that the dangerous drug that's always the elephant in the room is how this parent's ability has been stolen away by the child's addiction. So even though the child finds sobriety, his mother has become a facilitator, waiting for the exhale moment. When is my child going to go back? So even though the child is sober, he's lost his mother.
Yeah.
Even though the child is sober, he's lost his uncle. Even though the child is sober, he's lost his father, because the effects is still living at a frequency that we can't hear.
Yeah, because at any time, it could happen. You almost create an environment that, so when will it happen again? When will they relapse?
And what I've discovered is this, that often it's the addiction of the son that will unearth how the father or the mother needed a father and mother as well.
Oh, come on now.
So now we're dealing with a generational problem that addiction often surfaces.
Parenting skills.
Parenting skills.
And the quality of leadership that parents could give the children is actually a reflection of also where they are coming from and the quality of parenting that they had.
On point, 100%. So what we're dealing with now is not only an addiction problem, we're dealing with a social ill on a larger scale than just addiction.
That's what I was trying to say on my introduction. When I was saying, from the family, the question is how does the family, what software is the family using, both for producing children and growing them, educating them, before we submit them into the community, so that we don't just complain about the ills that are in the community, but also need to start talking about the ills that are in the family that are facilitating this. The breeding ground
Definitely.
of drug abuse is not only a community, it's actually broken down relationships within a family.
And the question is it ever restorable? Because to restore the family, you have to restore the father. So the question that I'm asking myself is this: have we raised up a generation who's already thought like an addict and who just became an addict?
It becomes inevitable. It becomes inevitable. It's cause and effect.
And that's what we're dealing with. So that's what I've discovered in my years of dealing with the addict, that it goes beyond me just saying, I want to help you. That I got to empower you to think deeper than you just finding sobriety.
What you're saying, what makes it critical also, when you look at the history and the perpetuation of crime, for example, that you discover that a country such as South Africa, which went through a gruesome crime history.
Yes.
Where murder, police violence, ringing people with tires.
Yes.
And, you can imagine what happened from the 74s, 75s into the 1994s.
Yeah.
That whole crime, sin. I'm building on what you're saying.
Yes.
When you have a society that has actually been fed with crime, the question is, when you celebrate independence, and we say we are now free in 1994, are we aware of the quality of people
There we go.
that are now independent? Independent from what? Because the DNA of crime and violence has already become the DNA of an entire generation. Anyone born, and anyone who was able to learn between 1974 and 1994, that entire group is a psychiatric group that needs a proper detox.
So we are now, and what you're saying now, that is now the parents of the addicts.
I'm with you. I hear you loud and clear.
So how do we deal that? How do we now effectively deal with that problem? That's what we got to ask ourselves.
We need to be candid and actually say to ourselves, including the political parties, that I don't think they know the people. I don't think they have a psychological profiling of the communities.
Sure.
I don't think the ministers, including the president, has a blue psychological profile of Soweto and say we have so many thousands. Of these thousands, so many were exposed to crime. And because of that, it's possible that out of this could be the cause. You know, like a projection.
And without that strategic leadership, we will just reinventing the problems.
Then when we know what we're dealing with, it influences, therefore, what sort of facilities do we put around this community? Sharpeville, for example.
And it's only when you know what you're dealing with that you can effectively understand.
Hence I spoke about assessing. Hence I spoke, let's first of all assess the damage, which has been psychological damage. I mean, right now people are excited about the economic damage.
Yes.
You know, I mean, everyone is talking about Rupert's, everyone is talking about, Stellenbosch.
That's one aspect. That's one aspect. That's one of the 6 points.
That's what I'm saying. So you're only like, let's rehabilitate our economy. In our economy.
But let's raise up people who can't think for themselves.
I mean, even if you fix up the economy, what do you do with an economy when you don't have the people who are human enough to utilize the economy for good? Why do you say you want to build an economy and yet actually 15, 20, 30% of your people are either on alcohol and on drugs?
But the question stands then, is that how they want the system to operate? Do I want only a 30% of people to understand what happens in the economy so that the 70% can be the puppets that
I'm with you. I
That's the
hear
question.
you.
That's
That's
the
the question. So when you are talking about the issue of drugs, it manifests itself in the greater socio-political economic space.
On a larger scale.
On a larger scale. But drugs then become one of the elements
that exposes that world.
That exposes that world in its function. Therefore, when you look at, and the other day, I mean, I was even thinking quite deeply about, the soldiers, for example, and the police who live and are trained to do violence. You know, you are trained to kill. And then you bring a soldier who is coming from war, and then you dump him in a community.
Sure.
This is a killing machine.
Sure.
That's all he knows.
Sure.
And then
It's
you live
in his DNA.
You're looking at the MK, for example.
Sure.
You're looking at the military veterans, for example, who are right now sitting on street corners doing nothing.
Sure.
They know explosives, they know guns, they know everything. And then we start to worrying about, hey, there's cash haste. There is what.
You've empowered those people for that thing.
I mean, I'm not saying MK are criminals. But until you walk up to an environment and understand the ills that are in the community, incubate both in talent and in skill, and those skills and talents have not been harnessed and shifted and twisted towards a constructive industry.
Yes.
It's a shame that MK soldiers could be actually toying on the street for lack of employment.
Sure.
And you are dealing with a highly calibrated, militarized group of people who are sitting around looking at the government and look that they fought for, and the government cannot meet them halfway. It's not even embarrassing to find that some of them are in prison right now as we are speaking, and some of them are part of the cartels of ammunition and etc.
And I'm asking, is it then the way they want it to be, where only a certain percentage of people understands what economic empowerment is? Because if only a certain percentage of people is philosophically inclined in terms of how the economic empowerment structure works, it means they will have power over the 70%.
When we come back after the break, let's hear how Kurt wrote his book here, Addicted to the Addict, and the process that it took him to run through and write this book. And of course, we want some few pointers and notes on how he's running his institution, what sort of a program. And we'll be sharing his details with you guys. If you're in the part of South Africa, particularly in the space of Johannesburg, there is an addiction center, a rehabilitation center. I almost said addiction center, a rehabilitation center, where he's also helping the young people in the community to fight and over their own addictions and find their purpose in life. Don't go away. We'll be right back after the break.
Galaxy Universal Network, inspiring Africa, making global impact.
Violence and sexual abuse against children has become a major social challenge during the COVID-19 lockdown. We appeal to adults, parents and caregivers to be kind towards children during this lockdown and beyond. Give children the space they need to engage with their reading and learning activities. Do not hit them. Do not yell at them. They are equally frustrated. We urge you to listen, support and help the children to survive the COVID-19 lockdown. Report immediately any incident of sexual abuse. The Department of Basic Education. Every child is a national asset.
Welcome back here on a beautiful Sunday afternoon here in Johannesburg, South Africa. It's sunny, partly cloudy with sunny and maybe afternoon thunder showers. We are sitting in studio today with Kurt van Heerden, who is taking us through the drug addiction, family, addiction, communities stuck in addiction, religious intoxication, and when you look at the history of violence in our country and how that is manifesting itself also into creating an environment which now in some spaces, sex, addiction, drugs, murder, crimes, and etc. things which we now call social ills. But are these really social ills or these are family ills? The basic unit of it all is the family. And he brings up something very important that usually the families of addiction will to an extent also reflect on the quality of parenting that is there and the history of the parents who are in those environments that breed these children. And very interesting turn that we received there. He has written a book entitled Addicted to the Addict. This guy took away my copy. I wanted to be holding it now. And so, can someone bring me that copy? I want to show it on air. They will be showing you the book and his numbers there. Please, you need this information, particularly you young parents. Some of you might be looking around and say, I have nothing to do with drugs. I have nothing to do with drugs. Hey, sit down and listen to this program. You are going to be parents soon. You are going to be a father, a mother soon. These issues we are talking about right now may end up in your house. And maybe while we are starting on this next session, I want to start maybe sharing, I want him to share with us what are the first symptoms that you can begin to see in your house or in your family that your child is now beginning to tamper with drugs.
Yeah. I think the basic ones are late nights, when they're up way too late.
They don't sleep early.
They don't sleep early at all. When they become aggressive, when they sleep a lot during the day, and when they have multiple mood swings.
Mood swings.
Mood swings. Those are the four minor ones that we can start looking for.
Start looking for.
Yes.
But by the time things start disappearing in the house?
No, then it's already escalated beyond, then they're a full-blown addict.
They're now, because initially they're feeding themselves with the pocket money that you give them.
When stuff starts getting missing in the house and they start stealing, it's at the point now where it's escalated to a bigger problem.
And clothing and etc.
Yeah, they start selling their clothing.
I'm saying in terms of their dressing, is it something that you can just see that they start neglecting themselves in some certain cases?
Without a doubt. So what happens is their physical appearance starts deteriorating. They start losing weight. It also depends on the type of drug. Every drug has a different effect on every different individual and on individuals in itself. Okay. So, like for example, your crystal meth is a drug that makes you very aggressive and it can make you hallucinate. So you'll start speaking to yourself. Okay. So every drug, cat, for example, doesn't have that effect as strong on the individual as crystal meth. So every drug that the individual takes has a different effect on him, and every individual is affected differently. For example, in our drug and rehabilitation center, the gentleman that will be joining us, he was addicted for 17 years of his life, smoked every drug underneath the sun, but he is not mentally affected. But there are individuals who has only smoked for 2 or 3 years.
And they've lost it.
So there's not a blanket answer in terms of what's right for this individual, what's wrong for that individual. Everyone is affected differently.
So the drug community also feeds into the mental illness section also.
Without a doubt.
Some who start on drugs think it's just drugs.
Yeah.
And then while you're in that space, your mind snaps.
Without a doubt. We had a guy in our rehabilitation center. He was there for a week and he was absolutely convinced that I am in his mind and listening to his thoughts. He was absolutely convinced that we have cameras placed within the rooms and observing his every move. That's when it's gone beyond. I call it crossing the invisible line.
You've become something else now.
So I always say drugs ends in 3 places. It either ends at a rehab center, dead, or in a it ends dead in a prison or in a mental institution.
Wow. 3 bus stops you must be aware of when you take on drugs. You end up in a mental institution, you end up in a prison, or you end up in a graveyard.
Yes.
Those are 3
without a doubt. No, without a doubt.
And the other day I learned something very interesting when it comes to levels of intoxication and levels of drug addiction.
Yeah.
They say the first level is when you become all powerful. You can beat anybody.
Yeah.
You feeling all
untouchable,
all strong, and then the next level, then you see them sitting down. You become all knowing. you become all geniuses. Like, I think this is where this guy was. He thinks he knows everything that is happening around. So you become all this person. You know everything about anything. You cannot ask the guy anything. He knows everything. But the last most dangerous part is when you become invisible.
Sure.
And when you become invisible, that's when you see a car coming.
Yeah.
And then you say, there's a car this way and another one this way. I want to fit between the car. And then you think totally you've become out of this world. And
Truth.
This is where people jump out of buildings
Truth.
because they think they can fly.
Truth.
They begin to do weird things because their mind is now at a level where they think they can no longer be governed or managed by physical limitations.
True. True, and they start hallucinate on high levels.
Here is a book that was written by Curt van Heerden, Addicted to the Addict, as it has already been shown on the screen there. I suggest that you get in touch with the gentleman, please. Even if there's no drug addiction in your home, even if you have not used drugs, this is the information that you need to have in the back of, inside your bag, in the back of your mind as a parent. So that when you begin to breed these children, I love you, sending emojis, sending flowers, when is my Valentine, all these beautiful things of organizing white weddings and spoiling each other, end up with children. And when these children finally are in your house, they are different monsters and species altogether. You need equipment to assist you and prepare you as a parent. So I'm not actually advertising this book just for the sake of advertising it. I'm actually saying it's a compulsory kind of literature that you will need to have in your house, in your presence, to go through and keep this information in the back of your head. The day you need this information, you will need it badly. And some of us will act like fools. It won't happen to me. It won't happen to me. There is no family that knew it would happen to them.
So good.
No one knew. So we really recommend, and we are trying by all means to rebuild this African continent.
Yes.
And when we have contributors such as Curt here, sharing with us their experience in the Rehabilitation Center, we want this information to be filtered right through the communities and see how best we can build another generation. Take us through your program that you're running at your Rehabilitation Center. What happens there? How do people come in there? What program do you run there? What's your success rate? And possibly, what are your challenges?
Sure. I think I'll start with the success rate. I think if you want to find out what the success rate is, we have to define what we speak about when we speak about success. Are we speaking about individuals completing the program? Are we speaking about individuals building their lives after the program? That there's a different reference point in terms of success. So when you speak about success rate in terms of people completing our program, I would say we're one of the best, if not the best.
100%. They start, they finish.
They start, they finish. Right? When we speak about success rate in terms of people building their lives, that is where we have a challenge. That is where we need to see that the information must now go from being taught to you implementing that information. And that's a whole different level of success right there. That's when you get married. That's when you start a family. That's when you get challenged on a whole different level. So we run a 6-month program where we focus on renewal of the mind. We also focus on redeem, restore, and release. At the core of what we do, we challenge the individual to lead, empower the individual to lead, and then send out the individual to lead. We believe there is a vacuum of leadership within the whole continent of Africa. We're also in relationship with the Rehabilitation in Zambia that is in relationship with us. So our desire is not only to see South Africa liberated, it is to see the African continent liberated. So this program that I'm speaking about, it is currently circulating on the African continent in some of the continents in Africa. So it's a 6-month program where we take the individual through a phase in which we try and get to understand what the root cause of his problem was.
So is it a center, is it a dormitory, or people just come in and walk away?
No, you book in. We actually have to come and sit for an interview process. We first need to identify whether we are the facility for you, whether we can help you, or whether you think you're invincible. Or whether you think you can fly through walls. So once we encounter...
You don't want to end up with a patient there who will be flying through the...
Who thinks he can, right? So we first have to sit you down, and it's important. We make families aware.
Assessment.
Yes. We don't help the addict without the family also wanting help. Because the hard work that we invest into the individual can be destroyed by how the family will respond to him when he comes back home. So we take them through, and the family through, a 6-month process where we deal with the addicted and the affected in a 6-month process. Then we have a 3 months additional program where we call it our reintegration program.
Back into the community.
Back into the community. Dealing with money, having sex, being in a relationship, those things that can negatively impact your journey of sobriety. Because in your 6 months, we don't get to understand who you are.
Yes. Only after that do you begin to... Can we begin talking to you?
Can I begin resonating?
You're coming from a world afar.
You coming, what was that temptation like, you know? What was it like when you were in that relationship? Are you still insecure, you know? Do you still feel the void that your dad left when he walked out of your life when you were young? Because in that relationship with that girl disappointing you, or that boy disappointing you, can be the reason why you go back to substance
And
abuse.
you relapse again.
So it has to go beyond my close proximity relationship with you. I actually have to become addicted to the addict.
Wow. So basically, you're running a counseling and
I share
quite
my
extensively.
You got to share my life. I got to share my life with them. You know, I always say helping an addict must get to a point where you become vulnerable with them. Because if you don't become vulnerable with them, their brokenness that they hide away from you will never be a place in which you can travel to and help them discover that it can change. And if you always come from a superiority place, trying to make them think that you're better than them, that you're not struggling with what they're struggling with, they can't relate to you.
They can't relate to you.
And
They dismiss you.
And the inability to relate will have them dismiss you and reintroduce themselves to a world that knows them. The world of drugs, the world of crime, the world of...
So basically, people want to be understood.
People want
to be known. People want to be...
we know it's
to be related to.
Yeah, it's a famous quote. You know, people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. Do we care for people more than what we care about what we can do for people?
So take me through a typical day at the rehabilitation center. What happens? I mean, we have done the assessment.
Yeah.
You show them their room.
So they wake up at 5 in the morning. They wake up at 5 in the morning.
Hey.
Yeah. One of the reasons why we wake them up at 5 in the morning, we believe that we got to introduce them into a cycle where their lives are going to be functioning in when they live in the world outside. Because what addiction does, addiction changes your routine.
Yeah.
So you are awake at night, sleep during the day. So what we need to do is introduce not only your recovery that's needed, but the system and the structure of life.
The skills to reintegrate.
Yes. So they wake up at 5 and then they obviously have breakfast. We have an empowerment session in the morning and then we have 4 empowerment classes throughout the day. The empowerment classes throughout the day deals with different aspects of your life as an individual. We also divide those classes into the different individuals that are there because some individuals are married, others are scholars, others are just coming out of school. So you cannot do the same empowerment session for all of them individually.
You have broken them.
You have to see every addict as a blank canvas on which you as a facilitator.
2 questions.
Yes.
When you're writing the book here, how long did it take you?
4 months.
4 months.
Yes.
It was urgent. It had to come out.
Definitely. What people don't know about this book is that up until this day, I haven't read it yet.
You haven't read it yet?
Yes.
You just poured your experience.
Just poured my experience. But let me tell you what was fascinating about this. I had a funder who told me that I can fund your book. So they said to me, you got 4 months to write it. When I wrote the book, a night before it was published, the editor made a mistake. On the day it was published, an hour before the, what do you call this?
Book launch.
Before the book launch, they told me that they cannot deliver the books. So people were gathering. We had about 400 or 500 people at the book launch, and I'm sitting outside in the street saying, "Oh boy, I hope these books are gonna come." And the books came, and the rush build up to the book launch was filled with so much anxiety that up until today, I haven't read it.
You haven't read the book.
I've heard good reports about it, and I've heard people saying, but it's just my experience, my relationship with the addict, my journey with the addict, the love that I've shown, and really just the life that I've shared with him.
Any support from government structures and
Not at
stuff
all.
like that?
Nothing.
And you want to make a call out there?
Nothing.
Do you want to make a call out there?
No, definitely.
And looking for partnership from social departments and other...
Look, I think what we're looking for now, we're looking for a bigger facility. You know, we've been in a house.
How many people are you housing now?
40.
40?
Yes.
Addicts?
40 addicts.
Okay. Here's a gentleman here, Kurt van Helden, down... Where is in Florida?
Just past Florida, number 15 Bree Street, Hamburg.
Hamburg, that's where the center is.
Yes, that's one house. We got 2 homes.
2 homes.
And the other one is in Weltevrede Park because we outgrew the one house and we had to rent another facility.
So if you're in South Africa here or anywhere in the world and you want to become part of this rehabilitation program, if you have gone through the process yourself or your children are in it, or you are a philanthropist who feels moved by the story we have shared today of building and rehabilitating drug addicts, here's your opportunity to link up with Kurt van Heerden here in South Africa and see how best we can actually begin to invest our monies and means. Imagine the beauty of finding someone on their way down and you're able to pick them up from there, restore them in the community, and they become something else that is worth counting on. And we will be bringing in another gentleman just after the break who is actually coming from a rehabilitation center. I would want to hear that conversation and sharing of some notes in that line there. So don't go away. Okay. We'll be right back with you after the break as we are toothpicking a young man who has come out of rehabilitation. We also want to hear his story and how he has dealt with addiction and share some notes. This is life.
Yes.
We are here to be sharing real stories with real people and never say it cannot happen to me. You may find yourself as a father, as a mother to a drug addict. The question is, what do you do when you get there? That's your program, Sankofa Maponga J, your host. Stay with us. After the break, we'll be bringing in a gentleman who has recovered from drug addiction, and he'll be sharing his story also with us.
The day will come when these measures are no longer needed. Until then, however, we must ensure that all our people receive adequate support. We look ahead to a better future. I have faith in the strength and the resilience of ordinary South Africans who have proven time and time again throughout our history that they can rise to any challenge that is presented to our country. We shall recover. We shall overcome.
Galaxy Universal Network, inspiring Africa, making global impact.
We're back on live again. Welcome one, welcome all here on your wonderful show, Sankofa, with your host Maponga J, discussing social ills. And today, particularly, we've zoomed into drug addictions and drug abuse in our communities. And with me is Kurt Van Heerden, who has written a book here, Addicted to the Addict, and how he has invested his life in transforming the community around Johannesburg. He's running a rehabilitation center which is housing more than 40 recovering drug addicts, and he has outgrown those facilities, and he's looking also for partnerships, businesses out there, governments out there, individual parastatals, or private investors and stuff like that, but those who are interested in the genuine CSI, corporate social investment. Here's an opportunity for you to actually put your money into transforming the communities. And sometimes remember, by investing in this, you are investing in the future. You could be investing in your own children. Your own children might end up in these drug rehabilitation centers. So don't point fingers and say drugs are there, crime is there. It will never come here. The day it comes to your house, you will be shocked and fall off your boots. And joining us on the other segment now is Utata Siboniso, and we'll be hearing more about his journey, also struggling with drugs and addiction. Welcome to the show, Siboniso.
Thank you, sir. Grateful recovering addict Siboniso is a major problem. First and foremost, I would like to express an attitude of gratitude to my higher power, God of my understanding, for it granting me another day clean and sober, and for keeping me this side of the grave. Yeah, addiction to me, I describe it as a disease of wanting more. Because why I describe addiction as a disease of wanting more, drugs are not addiction, but people are addicted to drugs because they have a mental problem, which is addiction. So the more I use drugs, I become addicted to those drugs because I have that personality, which is an addictive personality. Yeah, Siboniso started smoking while he was young.
What were you smoking, Siboniso?
All the drugs. I'm a mutual user.
When you started, what did you start with?
I started with marijuana.
Marijuana?
Yeah, and then I smoked marijuana maybe for 10 months, and then marijuana was no longer effective for me. Then I escalated to Menrex. Yeah, Menrex is a pill, and you mix it with the marijuana. It's a cocktail. You smoke it with a bottle cup. Call it a bottle cup. Yeah, and then I smoke Menrex, and then I was still at school when I smoked Menrex.
Then how were you doing at school?
I was no longer that effective at school. I was just going to school for the purpose of making my mother happy because she wanted me to go to school. But the desire to go to school was no longer there. I lost that drive to go to school. I just went to school for the purpose of my mother and my grandmother, because my father was not there in my life, you see. But he's not that he's dead. He's alive, but he was not there in my life. Yeah, and then I smoked Menrex. Yeah, for quite some time I was smoking Menrex. Then I stole it my house. That's why if I cannot find money, I will take something. I stole for myself until I did not have anything to steal for myself. Because now I no longer had underpants. You see,
you were selling underwear?
Yeah, I sell everything that can help me to get my DOC, drug of choice. And then until I stole from my grandmother now. The stealing escalated from myself to other people. Now I'm stealing from my sisters, my grandmother, my younger brothers, so that I can get that fix, you see. And I don't care what do you feel or what do you think. I see, if I only get the fix. Your feelings are the last thing that I take into consideration. What I take into consideration is the pain that I'm feeling now. Because I was no longer smoking for the effects of the drug, but I was smoking for the withdrawals. Because there are withdrawals, physical withdrawals, and they are painful. When I smoke, I am smoking now for the withdrawals, because I can't sleep on my own at night. I must use drugs to sleep. So if I don't have money to smoke, I must steal maybe
tonight you're going to be in trouble. You're going through withdrawal pain.
You know that you won't sleep, and you must make a plan, you see. Even though there's no plan, but you must make a plan, you see, because you've chose that life of making plans. Yeah, I stole everything at my house until there was nothing to steal, because now the doors were locked. And then there was security guard. My younger brothers became security guard. When I enter the house, they must watch me what I'm doing in the kitchen. And that thing became like, gosh, no, I must go outside to steal outside now. I moved from my house to steal for the neighbors now. If I find something outside the neighbor's backyard, I steal it, just for me to get that fix. Then
you would steal and then go and sell?
Yeah, I would steal and go to sell. Maybe I would steal metals and then go to the scrap yards, or maybe I would steal cell phones and then I would steal your cell phone one time and then help you to find it while I know it's in my pocket. Then after a while, I will tell you that you see, we can't find your cell phone, and me, I want to go now. You see, and when I go, so basically, you won't say it's Busiso who stole the cell phone, because Busiso was here helping you to look for the cell phone. But I know the cell phone is here in my pocket. Yeah, that thing became part of me. I became the stealer. I became the robber. I was the robber. I became the mastermind. I became the chief manipulator. I manipulate everything. I will make people feel sorry for me, but I know that was not the truth. I will come to you asking you for money for bread, but I know that I don't want bread. I will come to you asking for money for underwears, but I know that I don't want underwears. I became the manipulator, the chief manipulator. I became the mastermind. Now, at first, I had smoking parties, those people that introduce you to the TOC. Because you cannot start on your own, but you need people to introduce you to the suppliers. Yeah. Then afterwards, because I escalated now from social using, and then now I would use alone now. You see, on my back room at my house. Now I would tell my brother, Ketty, say, look here, my brother, son, today I'm not now. I'm not good. I want to go and sleep. For him to go, and then I start using, because now I cannot use a tablet and then I smoke it with 3 guys. There's no effect, the tablet I must smoke it alone, because there's no longer that effect that I'm looking for, the first effect that I got from my first picking up. Now I'm smoking to get that effect, but there's no longer that effect. You see, now I must, the more the drug I smoke is, the more it has a tolerance towards me. It's more the tolerance go up. Now I must smoke I used to smoke maybe 2 tablets, but now I must smoke maybe 15 tablets to get that highness that I get. But it's not that effective as the first highness that I. Now I'm rushy. I'm running for. It's like I'm playing.
Every smoke you want to go higher.
Yeah, and then now I cannot go that high from the first high that I get. And then I escalated. My using escalated from Mandrex to Kurt. I was introduced to Kurt. Kurt is a stimulant. There are two different types of drugs. There are hallucinogen, and then there are stimulants. Or depressant. There are depressant, and then there are stimulants. Depressant is those drugs that depress the mind, such as Mandrex. Mandrex is a depressant. And then stimulants are those that speed up the message from the body to the mind. Those that they make you hyper. For instance, like crystal meth, or cocaine, your cats, and then all those ones, your rocks, those ones, they speed up the message. Now I get an opportunity after I finish school. I got an opportunity to go and work at KFC. And then I was working at KFC, but now because I smoked those depressant, I can't work effectively. So I must now
change the
and then to the stimulant, so that I can impress the boss, and then they say, yeah, this guy
is fast.
Yeah, we need someone like this one. Yeah, I smoked cats. Then cats is not a same drug. You see, like Mandrex. Mandrex, if you smoke a star, you smoke a star. If you smoke a boss, you smoke a boss. If you smoke a elephant sign, you smoke an elephant sign. But cat now, there are different types. There's a purple whatsoever, there's a butterscotch, there's a whatsoever. Now they are different types with different chemicals. So now I said that thing of different types and different chemicals was no longer effective for me, because now I will smoke cat, but still I will not find that.
You were not doing the right. You were not doing the right cat.
That you see that man, that speed man that I want. You see, and then I escalated from cat to crystal meth. Yeah, crystal meth was very good. Crystal meth, because when I smoke crystal meth, I will forget everything.
But you still had the energy.
Crystal meth, crystal meth was effective, as I say, because it gave me that energy that I wanted. You see, that energy that after I smoked, and then I will begin to say, but this energy now is too high for me. I want something to come down.
Yeah.
You see, now because I'm too high, now I need something to come down, and then I must
go back up. Then you want to pull it.
Now I must go back to that depressant.
So you started mixing now.
Yeah, now I must go back to that depressant because now I'm extra high now. I cannot control myself now. I'm extra high. So I need that stimulate. I need that depressant to depress the mind and to depress the mind. And then Mandrex was not effective to depress the mind, you know, because I will smoke Mandrex and smoke crystal meth patties and I will remain high. I will remain high and high. So I had to go to a very powerful depressant, you know, which is heroin. Heroin was a very powerful depressant. They call it in the locations they call it nyaupe because it's a cocktail of it's a cocktail, local cocktail of zol and a powder, which is heroin. We smoke it with the zol. That's why they call it nyaupe. Local cocktail. I needed that thing because it's high, it's powerful. It's more powerful than Menrex. When I'm high, when I smoke crystal, I will down myself.
But now you're working, you're eating your money now.
Yeah, I'm eating my money.
So you get your salary and
I'm getting my salary and then, but because now if you are an addict, you cannot be consistent on doing one thing. I just decided not to go to work this one day, and then I absconded. They called me at work. Hey, why don't you come to work? I did not have an answer. When my grandmother asked me, I told them at work they fired me because I had a reason to. I see.
You had to lie.
Yeah, I had to lie because now I have those withdrawals. Crystal. I have heart pains if I don't smoke. I have all those psychological problems. I hallucinate and then I see ghosts. I say all those things.
You've seen ghosts?
Yeah, I've seen.
They come to visit you?
I've seen ghosts. Yeah.
They were trying to take you to their land?
Yeah, I've seen everything. I've seen ghosts. When I'm in crystal meth, I hallucinated. I've seen ghosts. I've seen everything. Now I had a problem. And a problem was myself. Drugs were not the problem, but I was a problem. I had to come to a place of doing a self-introspection and just putting the...
What caused the day you finally discovered
that Siboniso is a problem? Siboniso is...
What triggered that?
Okay, I stole money from my grandmother. Just for me to go and use. She asked me to go and pay rent. And then on my way to pay rent, I saw her, and then she asked me, did you pay rent? And then the man was still in my pocket. And I told her, yes, I paid rent. I decided to take the shotgun and go to the snake man because I already told her that I paid. And the man, I still have the man. And then I decided just to take a shot left and go to use that man. Then my grandmother was fed up because she even the doors at the house were locked. But they gave me a chance, you see, but it was no longer the same. But stealing the man, I make her to be furious. Because she told me that I'm a brother, if you want to come back home, you must come back with the man. Aye. Now where will I find the man? You.
How much was that?
Small money, 200 rand.
200 rand.
Small money, small. Where will you find the man? Aye. But I decided not to go back to home. I went to stay with my friend Mara at his backyard, but we had quarrels with her grandmother because we were smoking in his room. Then her grandmother decided to tell both of us. Yeah. Went to stay at street. Now I was staying at street. There's a church there by my location. I used to go inside that church every night. There's a tent there. I used to go every night and sleep under the tent. To eat, I would go and rob those guys. Those guys who own the tuck shop. I'll go and tell them that I want 1, 2, 3, and 4. My grandmother is where, and then I want bread and tin fish. When she come back, I'll bring your man because now she did not leave money for food, and I stay with my brothers. I'll make a reason. I will make everything to get my whatever. I was a mastermind. I was a manipulator. I was a chief manipulator. One day I was sleeping outside, and then I got a kick. You see?
A kick?
Yeah, a kick.
What kick now?
Yeah, a kick. Wake up, like a kick, wake up.
Okay.
Yeah, like a wake up and kick. Yeah, and I was sick and tired of being sick and tired, you see.
Who kicked you now?
The other guy kicked me, my friend, you see, yeah. He's my friend now. He kicked me, that guy, and told me that, my brother, this life that you are living now, is not life, you see, because now we are sleeping at the tent, you are stealing for people, like it's not their life. And that kick for me, man, it was not him kicking me and telling me that thing, but it was God of my own understanding kicking me that day, telling me that you must wake up, my brother. Now you guys at your age now, they're at their houses, and then they don't steal 200 rand from their grandmothers, but they bring bread. But me, I was not, and I'm supposed to be a breadwinner, because there's no, my grandmother, she depends on the grand money. But I'm supposed to be the breadwinner, but I'm the one who come and steal the bread, you see.
Kurt, when you hear the story, it sounds familiar.
Very familiar. Very familiar. I've been hearing stories like this for the last 8 years of my life. And I hear them every second day.
Every second day?
Every second day.
Someone is walking in.
Someone's walking in. I'm hearing it over the phone. I'm hearing the cry of a parent. I'm hearing how couples want to get divorced because of these type of stories. I've seen marriages divorced because of stories such as these. So this is nothing new to me. The story is nothing new to me.
It's quite, this is the trend of life that drug addiction drives people to. And where did you end up?
Yeah, I end up in the street, as I said before. Then my sister from Johannesburg, she hooked me up with social workers from Sanka. Yeah, Sanka ran 8 from Johannesburg. Then they took me to a rehab center, LRC, Randfontein. The program there took 6 weeks. Then 6 weeks was not effective for me, because 6 weeks was small. I smoked for 12 years, and then I would take 6 weeks to renew my mind. 6 weeks is nothing. But I had that drive in myself, because now there was no longer a use to smoke, because I was no longer smoking to using to live, but now I was living to use. I had withdrawals. If I smoke, I don't smoke for highness, but I smoke for withdrawals. Because if I don't smoke, I have that cramps, I have everything, like I have swollen feet if I don't smoke. I must smoke because now I'm sick. I'm sick. I smoke to cure my sickness. But I saw that I will die. Then I went to Randfontein. I stayed at Randfontein for 6 weeks. I finished the program, but the program was not enough for me. Then I applied for a halfway house. It's an extended program for guys who want to go. It's a halfway house. We go and stay halfway house. The program is between 6 months and a year. Then I went to stay another 1 year at rehab. And then I stayed that year, and then
there was no relapse in your...
I never relapsed. And then on the 4th of May, because I was still smoking cigarettes, then on the 4th of May 2020, I decided to quit cigarettes. Till today, I don't smoke cigarettes. I don't smoke anything like me. I don't,
now you're okay now?
Yeah, now I don't smoke. I don't use anything. Like,
where's Moses?
Yeah, it's just Moses and just reading the...
Any plans for education, training, or
yeah, the desire that I have me is to carry the message to the still suffering addicts, as my brother is doing. That is the primary purpose of an addict, to carry the message to the still suffering addicts. But now, because I lack resources, also I had that desire to open a place for myself. Because at my location, like it's the center of heroin, every guy, every friend I know, and when I came back from rehab, I only to find out nothing has changed in the community.
You're the only one who has changed.
The snake man is still there in that corner. The snake man is still in that corner.
Who is the snake man? He's a supplier?
Yeah, he's still in that corner that I used to find him in.
He's still there?
Still standing there in that corner. And I see...
And that haters Moses?
Yeah, and I see him in his eyes that he say, you'll come back. I'm waiting for you. Because everyone is saying, I know, you'll come back. But if you take a good step, not everyone is happy. You see, there are those guys who will say, we know him, man. This one we used to smoke with him, what. So, but there are guys that comes to me because they know me from smoking, and then they knew me before I was clean.
And they're asking you, hey, please help me.
Man, help, my brother, help, please.
So there is a call for
like people need to be helped. You see, but
maybe I don't know. You guys could exchange numbers.
No, of course.
After the show, because he's already running 2 homes.
Yeah, but that's what
in the south. and you can maybe get share some business plans and do some fundraising around these projects. It's a reality. It's a reality, and if you are here as a testimony to tell us, what's your message to the young people out there?
The message to the young ones out there is not to lose that hope, you see, and it's not to conform to the standards of this world, but always renew your mind. For me, I was there. Many guys saw me there, they know me, and then they see me today. What I would say, also may I get the chance, only if you want to change, because we cannot force guys, you see, but you must want this thing. You must be hungry for change, you see. And then if you are hungry for change, there are people who are out there who are willing to help us. Then they can go an extra mile and help us. But people want to help people who want to be helped. Because also you can try to help someone, and then you find that someone went to the corner again, and then you become discouraged, you see. You say, but I sent you. There's no need to help these people.
Your words of encouragement to the young men.
Keep on doing what you're doing, because what he's doing is working. I can hear it. I always say that you can hear an addict who's changed, but you can't always see one who's changed.
When they talk, you can hear.
It's in their speech.
What did you pick up in his conversation?
I picked up the authenticity. I picked up the genuineness. I could hear that he wasn't trying to manipulate us.
He was a chief manipulator, remember?
Yeah, I could hear it. So, and I think that he crossed the line from having developed the character, because we call it the life behind addiction. So some guys get out of addiction, but their life of addiction still follows them. So they're still manipulative, they're still cunning. And I did not hear that in his speech.
He has crossed.
He's crossed it. So you can hear it.
He is worth investing in.
He's worth investing in.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you are there watching now, Siboniso Dladla, yeah? Siboniso Dladla, recovered, let's give him a good word, a recovered drug addict. He has smoked all the drugs you can mention on the streets of Johannesburg and beyond. And here he is to be telling us that it is possible. When you set up your mind and you repurpose in your mind to change your life and move in the direction that you want, it is possible. Addiction is not a life sentence. You can change your life. You can change your life. It takes you one push to get started. It will take you one throw down to the ground to start mapping up your life again. And that power of choice resides within you. Yes, parents can go away, society can say this, and all these other influencing factors can be around you. But at the end of the day, your life is in your hands. The choice of this life remains your own personal decisions. Stop blaming everybody else. Look in the mirror and ask yourself, who are you? The mirror will also ask you, who are you? And until you begin to have that personal conversation with yourself, you constantly be blaming everything else that is outside of you. Thank you, Siboniso, for having popped in here. And stay on here. We'll remove the microphone from you. And when you come back after the break, we'll have another experience with another gentleman who has been on these drugs for 17, 18 years. And he has also made something positive out of his life. Don't go away. Be back with you right after the break. Your program, Sankofa. Your host, Maponga J. Siboniso Dladla, Kurt van Heerden. You still stay with us, and we reflect on the last portion of our show here. Thank you very much for sparing the time with us. And I hope people out there will be able to pick up your interest in the Tsakane area, and we can see how best we can link up with other parties to assist in driving this program for drug rehabilitation centers. We appreciate you, sir.
Thank you.
Violence and sexual abuse against children has become a major social challenge during the COVID-19 lockdown. We appeal to adults, parents, and caregivers to be kind towards children during this lockdown and beyond. Give children the space they need to engage with their reading and learning activities. Do not hit them. Do not yell at them. They are equally frustrated. We urge you to listen, support, and help the children to survive the COVID-19 lockdown. Report immediately any incident of sexual abuse. The Department of Basic Education. Every child is a national asset.
The day will come when these measures are no longer needed. Until then, however, we must ensure that all our people receive adequate support. We look ahead to a better future. I have faith in the strength and the resilience of ordinary South Africans who have proven time and time again throughout our history that they can rise to any challenge that is presented to our country. We shall recover. We shall overcome.
Galaxy.
We all go through difficult situations in life, divorce, failure, crime, robbery, and traumatic events that fall upon your life. The question is not what happens to you. The question is how you respond to that which has happened to you. And some people will always find a reason as to why something is done or has been done or will be done, except to identify that actually the problem is not outside there. The problem is in here. Siboniso has just shared his story with us, how he ended up with addiction, and without even being prompted, you heard. He mentioned also the absence of his father. In passing, I heard him, and how that also ended up here. He ended up living in a house where there was no discipline. And is it therefore possible? And in this generation we're living in now, where many women, and sorry for saying that, I know I might be causing havoc on social media right now, where women can just say, I can do it on my own. I can do it on my own. Single mothering has become trendy, you know? Me and my child, me and my child. Hey, it was never designed that women should bring children by themselves. Homes need a mother and a father, and the child must be right there at the center to grow. And in many cases, some of these children who have been brought up in single parenting homes have ended up in these situations. And some people out there have ended up on alcohol addiction, some on drug addictions, some on sex addictions, some on overcompensatory behaviors as they manifest themselves in whatever way. Maybe you've gone through a difficult time in your life. Maybe it's a rape, maybe it's a negligence, maybe it's pressure, maybe it's change of careers. We don't know. Maybe even churches have frustrated you. The pastor promised you, if you put your money here, it's going to come back, what, and you have been praying for 6 years, and your prayers are not answered. So actually, churches could also be a center of stress, where you go there, everyone has a testimony. No, the Lord has done this for me. The Lord has done this for me. And when you're always sitting there every day wondering, hey, country, what's wrong with me also? The Lord never visits me, you know. And he ends up giving you overcompensatory behavior. Maybe if I should go to church more, maybe if I should love the pastor more, maybe if I should take my money, and maybe if I, because you are trying to get there also to the high. You might not be on drugs necessarily, but you're trying to get to the high, where you can also pick up the microphone and say, ladies and gentlemen, the Lord appeared to me last night. You know that feeling there? And so even some of these jobs, you could work hard and you find that you are never good enough. You could study hard as a child and you discover you are never good enough. This pressure begins to build inside you, and sooner or later you might just end up and say, it's not worth it, man. I've tried my best. It's not coming together. I might as well just throw in the towel. And right there, some go for suicide. You know, right there, some go for crime. Right there, some try to refine the definition of themselves. And of course, we're sitting today with Nelo Sibanda, and you tell us his story. When he got there, what did he do? Welcome to the show, sir.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah.
I'm grateful to be here. As you mentioned, my name is Nelo. Sure, my story and listening to Siboniso, there's so much relation. I can relate to him on so many levels, and being 37 years old.
You're 37 now?
37.
Wow.
I look young.
You look what young?
Thanks,
You have a baby face.
Making me shy. I always realized that I was not, before I picked up my first joint to smoke, I realized that I've been groomed.
And the joint means marijuana.
Matakwani.
Matekwane.
Yeah.
Okay.
Nzangu.
Nzangu. Mbanje in Shona.
I realized that I was being groomed, growing up in a broken home as well, knowing my father but not having any relationship with him. I started looking for identity within the street. I found validation, obviously for all the wrong things.
When you do the wrong thing, then they say,
yeah,
we injure this. You're the dog.
And it just escalated from there. And I was someone, I always say that I'm the worst of the worst. I was never influenced to use. It was always my wanting to use. I wanted to use, and I've been addicted for 17 years.
17 years.
17 years. Out of that 17 years, and my wife and I, we've been married now for 11, going for 12. Out of that 12 years, for 8 of those years, I've been addicted. And we have never, or myself, I've really enjoyed the feeling. You know, people always say and sit here and say, no, drugs, you can't make sense why someone constantly goes back to the thing. You go back to the same thing, where a family can see how it's affecting
it's destroying you.
It's destroying you, but the person himself is comforted in the addiction. You know, you
were high and you were
high,
there.
I'm right.
And you're okay, you take off your shoes, put them on your couch.
I am fine.
I'm cool.
I'm cool. And it's a cycle that whenever I come out of my high, I want to get high again. Because the reality is too strong. It's too strong for me. And I've been to several rehabs over my...
In those 17 years?
In those 17 years. 5 rehabs. And I had a medical operation. So my wife caught me with a pipe, with a crystal meth pipe. I went to bed with a pipe in my pocket, and I fell asleep. And she found my pipe. So she told me she's going to leave me, but I didn't worry about what she was saying to me in that moment. I wanted my pipe. I fought.
You started fighting for the pipe.
I fought for my pipe. And called the family together, and I felt, hey, I'm in a corner. I might as well change. And I said, you know what? I want to change. Please help me. And I've been to 2
But it was not coming from you saying, I want to change.
No, I was
the environment was
dictating.
Like, yeah, you know.
Say, you got to now.
Survival here.
You got to, and what do I do? Okay, let me try.
Manipulated the situation.
I had to. It's the chief game in the life of an addict. And they did research, and they found this medical operation that says, you know, they insert a small little pill on the right hand side of the left buttock, and it takes away your craving. Even if you smoke, you won't get high. And that's a lie. Because
you experimented with that operation.
I went with my pipe to the operation. I had my crystal meth and everything on me, going there for that operation. It did not work. It was the worst thing I could have done. My wife says the same. Years down the line, I went to another rehab. I broke into the tuck shop at that rehab.
At the rehab?
At the rehab. Yeah.
To take what now?
I'm a knickknacks.
Knickknacks?
I'm a keep. Yeah, just something small. You know, you just want.
But what you are saying, it might look small, but that the state of addiction gives you total disregard of life, of other people's property, of consequences, and you just in this zone where you are not accountable to nothing.
No. It's what Pastor Curt mentioned about the life behind addiction, you know. And he fetched me, Pastor Curt fetched me from the rehab, and I've been to churches. I've had people.
Did they pray for you?
They prayed for me. I fell.
You fell in the spirit.
I fell. I was down.
But the addiction did not fall.
It did not fall. It woke me up.
Hey, this is an interesting one. Then I know some of you guys who know me for a few of my radical statements around church. I'm not saying church does not work, but sometimes these guys who run churches are not professional enough to understand the people that you are dealing with. And to an extent that you just think that by saying fire, you know, you have actually chased away the drug. Maybe some people it has happened, it has worked. Let me not subtract. Maybe in some cases some people have been given fire and they fell, and when they woke up the addiction was gone. One day when we find them, we will talk. But today, we have one who fell
several times.
And when he woke up, the addiction was still there.
It was still there. And it wasn't me not wanting to change. The life behind addiction was stronger than the culture of the church that I found myself in. And coming to the center, being mentored by Pastor.
So you went to where did you find him?
He fetched me at the rehab.
His wife's brother was in our rehab.
Okay.
Then we took his wife's brother through our rehab. And his wife one day asked me, with tears in her eyes, I'm almost at the point where I don't want this man back, but can I give it one more chance and can he come to your rehab? And that's when I drove.
So there was divorce on the table?
Papers were signed. I was away from home for 2.5 years at that point. Not living at home, living from lolly lounge, on the streets, place to place. And I wasn't at home. And Pastor Curt fetched me and I went to this rehab. And looking at someone younger than me, thinking, how is this guy going to help me? Now everybody has tried. I had people with nice beards like yourself.
And pastors, of course, with big Bibles.
With big Bibles.
Yeah.
And
but of course, when the pastor has prayed for those few moments, there is a small little feeling of
I can do this.
I can do this. I can do this. But I think it doesn't reach the core.
And that's why I say the culture that was being, and as you mentioned, the culture that I was seeing in the church, I'm never going to get there. I'll never be able to be like this.
I'll never hear testimonies.
Yeah, I'm full of tattoos. People don't have tattoos. People got big collars in the church, and I'm standing. I'm like, am I ever going to qualify to be okay here? You know. And when I met up with Pastor Curt and we started building this relationship where I started trusting and hearing, and I said to myself, you know what? If I can trust this man with my life, I'm sitting 5 years now.
Wow, clean. And it's been a difficult journey because I still get that feeling. I still remember the taste. I still get the thoughts. I even dream about it, because you cannot compare 17 years to 5. It's a day at a time.
It's a day at a time.
I mean, the other day I was talking to Abna Maridi, who blew up his house and cars and what in addiction. He went to the States and back and came back with nothing. And every time he actually has designed for himself a yearly celebration.
Very good.
Where he actually goes on media and say, I'm celebrating my 5th, my 10th, my 11th, my 12th year, clean from addiction. So it has to do with constantly retelling yourself that you are on the right path. Your wife is now here. Your kids are now here. And if this is what you want, then you have to re-emphasize good behavior and reward yourself for the good behavior, and so that you can starve the other wrong behavior. When you found him, what was the first impression that you saw on him?
In our community in Afrikaans, I'm going to try and find the English way to explain it. Clever boy dink ek ken alles. In other words, smart gangster thinks he knows everything. He had glasses on him. He had a particular walk that he had on him. And he just walked.
And I was a size 28.
And he was a size 28. So I was sitting in the car, and to be honest with you, I was with his brother-in-law, and I said, this one is not going to make it.
They're talking about this.
That was my words when I saw him. I said, this one is not going to make it.
But you could see the attitude from a distance.
The attitude. But in the process of our program, It just changed like that.
You connected. I mean, as he's rightfully saying, he says he looked at you younger, but he decided, I can trust this man with my life. And I think maybe that's a very good point right there. That sometimes as a young person, you feel that you have your nuts in balls in a row. You think you've figured it out. Then you try it out and you fail and you fail and you fail. And I think it reaches a time where you can also just say, can I trust someone else to handhold me across? Because you have failed to make decisions. If we leave you alone, you mess up. If we give you money, you mess up. If you are a mess as we are looking at you right now. But the question is now when someone comes in and says, I can help you. I think it takes that trust to say, let me hand over my locus of control, that this person, what they're telling me, the program that they're putting me on, the things that they're telling me I must do, what do you lose? You've tried something for 17 years and it has failed. And someone comes in a week and says, hey, try this. Try it differently. What do you lose to try something differently? And I think that for me, that's quite a in my counseling days, where a couple fights forever. And then you say, how about you write what you like, he writes what he likes, share some notes and compare the likes, write what you don't like, write what you don't. We're not going to be doing that. Hey, but you have failed. What you are trying don't work. And people sometimes just have this attitude of don't want to try or trust other people to come around and give you solutions. He thought you were not going to make it. And he looks at you now.
Yeah, I think, and I always say that guy didn't make it.
That one there.
That individual didn't make it.
The one he saw there.
The one he saw didn't make it because I was street smart, rebellious. I did not know what authority looked like. I did not get a hiding from any father figure. All I knew is my mother, poverty, and the street. You know,
I have to make it on my own.
I have to make it on my own. At the age of 14, I was the eldest. My mom wasn't working, and I needed to be the one responsible for a loaf of bread and half a dozen eggs.
You know, how you brought it?
Whatever I needed to do, I would do. And I used to, even on my school bag, I used to write, on the back of my bag, I used to write, I'm the kid your mother warned you about. You know, because everybody in the street, all the community members used to say, don't hang out with Nelo. Don't hang out with Nelo. Don't hang out with Nelo.
I am that one.
And I'm
Stay
that
away.
one. I'm that one. I'm that one because everybody else is moving forward. And I started not disregarding, or I just had this thing where I disliked people who had a mother and a father in the house.
Who had it together.
Who had it together.
Yeah. And it's amazing sometimes when you grow up with that kind of a mindset that you want to duplicate what in the environment that you were brought up in. So some marriages collapse, not because there's anything wrong with the marriage, but the person in their mind, me and my mother, we made it without a father.
So That's so good.
You know, and now here you are with a wife.
That's so good.
Here you are with a husband and their children, and it's perfect. But something in you just says,
that's good.
It can't be perfect. It can't be perfect. Something has to go wrong to an extent that you find women in this present day who would jump on their husbands looking for something wrong.
My word.
Because then it confirms.
My word.
It confirms my worldview that says me and my mother, we made it without a man. How can you come into my life and you become perfect? So in the end, you grow up in a house where there's no father, and then there you have a wife, and something in you says there's one extra person here who must go. And this time it's you.
That's so good.
Yeah. I just thinking about that and looking at the dynamics at which because I'm working with Pastor Curt on a full-time basis now, helping individuals like myself, where we've seen.
I'd love to come to your place, man. Let's make an appointment. I would want to come there and visit. And
he actually doesn't help me. He actually runs the facility for me.
Oh, he's being kind.
So it's better for, as I told you, I don't really have the addiction experience. And as our facility grew, the demand.
He's the library.
He's that one. He's that one.
Okay. Wow. So how many kids now?
I got 3.
3 kids later.
3 kids.
And wife is good?
Wife is good. Wife is good.
I mean, what is nice sometimes, it's not just to sensationalize the wrong side of life. I mean, with your permission, maybe we could even organize one show where we can have a family show. And we would love to hear, I mean, we are grown up now, we have worked on addiction, this is something of the past.
Yeah.
We can now talk to help other people who are stuck in this environment. I want to extend an invitation. Maybe we can organize with our office, maybe bring your wife in, bring your kids in, if they are old enough to have understood what was happening when Dad was in this space. And let's share that story. Both for me, that's real, that's real honest story that could be warning another man out there, warning another child out there who still is going to try what you tried. And when I talk to my young pastors, for example, and I tell them, hey, Mchana, I did this for 33 years. 33 years. I've been to college, university, and I've trained as a minister of gospel. I've preached around the whole 5 continents and back. I've written books, I've conferenced, I've done that. You come around and I tell you, this won't work. Take my 33 years of experience and start from there forward. Don't start at the bottom. Don't try what I tried. Because most likely you are going to start from zero and you are sitting in front of 33 years of experience. What do you lose? To plug it from here. If I tell you that the white Jesus won't work 33 years later and you still think that you're going to hang up a white picture of a Jesus on the wall, and you are few kilometers dragging your learning experience. Because if you will not have an opportunity of getting to Egyptology, you will not have an opportunity of getting to Andrews University, sitting around with professors, questioning theology and dogmatics and what, and come up with kinds of Nicenes and conclusions and say, hey man, guys, this guy could be there, but I think there was a problem here and here and here and here and here. He said, no, but Pastor, you've become pagan. I say, hey, whoa. Learn from my mistakes, check my scars, see where I've been wounded, and see what you can learn from there. Your final parting shots, Pastor Curt, and what would you want to tell the world out there now that we've spent some time together? And thank you for your patience. I know I ruffle and I waffle a lot, you know.
No, you're not ruffling a lot. I'm learning so much, you know, in my own personal journey in terms of even where I find myself as a young pastor. I think all of us are in the process of learning and growing. And I think whenever you outgrow learning, you start becoming ignorant. So I think my last passing words would be, let us see beyond the addict's addiction and let us fall in love with the person who's crying out for help. And I think, let us drop the magnifying glass and let us pick up the mirror, because in that way we will come to a foregone conclusion that as much as the addict needs rehabilitation, myself and together as a family, we need it even more.
Wow, you should be a poet, man. Sounds like a beautiful. I mean, I almost went into some rapping, you know, and have some. The rhythm was right there, and the lyrics are just lit right there. Stop using the magnifying glass to see how big this problem is. Pick up the mirror instead, and look yourself in the mirror. You may just discover that you need the rehabilitation more than the person. You say, listen, I'm a good student. And your parting shot with the world out there.
My parting shot will always be, you have to love the addict beyond his brokenness. You know, if you do not see the future of the addict, you will never be able to help them in the present. You got to be able to see the future of the addict. And I'm grateful and I'm just humbled to be addicted to the addict.
Wow. Here we are on your program, Sankofa, live with Maponga J, Nelo Sibanda, and Kurt van Helden, who have been taking us through the rehabilitation processes. As long as a person is alive, as long as they are still breathing, there is an opportunity for that person. Only dead people don't have hope. You cannot write away or write off anybody. Those that have discovered and invented things in the past, some of them were even chased away from school for being unteachable. But their parents or relatives or something happened, and they brought them into book and listened to them and found that person inside that person. Look around Bill Gates, drop out from college. Look around Zuckerberg, drop out from colleges, and etc. But where are they now? It takes an effort and an eye for humanity to look beyond failures and mistakes and be able to redeem people and bring the best out of the people. And some, of course, are like pawpaws with softer skins. You can almost peel them with your hands. Some are like oranges. You may need a small little knife to assist you. Some of them are like coconuts. You may need to take a panga and hit to get into the core, and some of them are like macadamia nuts. You may need to get a real full hammer to crack inside there, but inside all these hard shells which we put on ourselves, there are gems that only those who know how to access them will find the beauty that is inside of us. Don't give up on people. We have not given up on you also. Go home today, get closer to your husband, get closer to your wife, get closer to your child, those that are around you. Look into their eyes. You may see yourself in them, seeking for help. Let's love each other and build a nation of Africa to what we want it to be. In the hands of addiction and crime, the future is oblique. Those that are sober will always rule over those that are drunk. Your host, Maponga J. Chigaramboku Garamashamba Uda Chirana na Wevanji. Makumbe mwana mwesende weshano chirana na Wevanji. Tiswa na matanga kugara na chigarama uhe matanda novora. Chigwe chitedza chinotedzera rukuri ripedo ntambana chomtambo ruparo ware. Vanu pembera na machina wira miti ya sose. Chirana na Wevanji mapona ngokubachira mbakusesera. Until we see you again, don't do what I wouldn't do. But if you decide to do it better.